Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Come on.
Hey, now. Break it down, build it up. We got way more than enough.
And I'm really glad that you're here, because without you, our Ignatian family wouldn't exist. After all, I mean, at least for me, it took me some time to truly understand that. As a high school student from St. Ignatius College Prep in San Francisco, I kind of didn't know that this family even existed. And no offense to my awesome teachers and my classmates at SI, but I guess I was pretty distracted. I wasn't really fully there to grasp the amazingness of this inclusion in the spirit of Jesus and Ignatius, right? To bring the margins in and to care for one another and to fight for what we think and what we know is right, to fight for God's dream for the world, for one another. So I guess I was kind of in my own stuff. So I'm really glad that you're here, because that tells me that you're kind of not in your own stuff and you're willing and you have the capacity to care for other people and to learn from other people. Our gathering is really, really important. We are a community of learners, willing to admit what we don't know and willing to share what we do know and how we know. We are a loose group of scholars, of activists, of friends who try their best to build God's kingdom of justice and peace.
And whenever we wake up, whenever there's insight, whenever there's a way of understanding suddenly that changes the trajectory of our life, we know that we've been hit by grace.
The Eco Leadership Team is an empowered group of seniors
who take action to bring forward an
environmentally stable, just,
and resilient community at O'Dowd and beyond.
Eco leaders strive to promote a culture of sustainability,
spread awareness of environmental injustice,
and provide students the tools needed to create the world they want to live in.
The Eco Leadership Team of 2021 is called to be uniquely flexible
and adaptive in the face of unexpected challenges.
In order to ensure
the health and safety of all,
we will be prioritizing student engagement in the following ways. Build and strengthen a strong, supportive, and fun community
of students with a passion for the environment through
regular Eco Club meetings via Zoom and increased online presence.
Provide resources for students to engage in environmental activism, live more sustainably,
and connect with nature in their own communities and online.
I will consider how God dwells in the creatures, in the elements, giving them existence, in the plants, giving them life, in the animals, and finally, how in this way God dwells also in myself. This contemplation challenges us to see the world as charged with the grandeur of God, to use the words of the great Jesuit poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. And so I ask, how would your life be different? And how would the world be different if we saw creation in this way?
Doing the social justice work is not easy. It's definitely a challenge, but we did it and we know that you can too. You joined in today because you're passionate, you're motivated, you want change. So what we ask you to do now is take this that you heard today, use it. We thank you for coming with us. We thank you for wanting to create change. We thank you for being passionate. We thank you for devoting time. We thank you for wanting to learn. This is not easy work, but with us working together, we can create change. We can change our cities. We can change our states. We can change our nation. We can change our world.
And here's the thing about waking up, that when we do wake up, it's important to act right away, to put that new insight into action in some way. Otherwise, if all we do is keep staying on the sidelines or writing about it or just keeping on reading, we have to act, because when we act, when we put our hands on the rope and start pulling, Life flows through us, and that's when we have hope. If all you're doing now, and these are challenging times we live in now, is just getting information which you can Google in your hand on your iPhone, and overwhelmed with information going on, you can move into despair, paralysis. It's so important to act, and act is always connected in community.
¿Qué consejos darías a estudiantes, los estudiantes que van a estar mirando este video, que están en la prepa, como entre 14 y 18 años, que son pues la mayoría, algunos ciudadanos, tal vez algunos que no tienen documentos, pero que tienen una voz allá?
Que le echen ganas al estudio, que luchen para nosotros, que se esfuercen, que den el 100%, que convenzan al gobierno americano a cambiar las leyes. Es el consejo que le doy. Que luchen, que si pueden cumplir el sueño que uno sueña de tirar esa frontera, de que la gente sea libre para entrar a Estados Unidos. Obvio, como lo digo, no todo, la gente mala, pues no, porque si no va a ser lo mismo, ¿eh? Pero sí, que se esfuercen, que den lo máximo. Por eso les pido, estudiantes, ayúdennos, esfuércense, den lo máximo. Es el consejo que les puedo dar.
Don't accept the status quo. For our planet, for the poor, for people of color, women, and LGBTQ plus folks, the status quo is an instrument of injustice and violence, and can even be a death sentence. This means that if we're going to work for ecological justice, we must also work for racial justice and gender justice, because all of these injustices are part of the systems that drive the technocratic paradigm. We must recognize that violence against both women and Mother Earth, note the feminine language we use for the planet, walk hand in hand. We must seek an integrated response that does justice for all. Again, everything is connected.
So to be pro-life means we got to be into all the issues of life. You know, the migrants that are drowning in the Mediterranean, you know, the immigrants trying to come into our country seeking asylum in the desert, coming in from the southern border, children that don't have enough food, the terrible education system where people are thwarted and maimed in their mind because they can't get an education, people not getting access to health care. When you go to look at issues and when you go to vote for someone, you got to look at the whole deal.
Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to seek reward, save that of knowing that I do your will.
What kind of world do you want to live in? Now, what can you do to make that world a reality?
We have come to win.